Oh, why have I been? Did I kick myself out of the game? I think I did. There we go. I'm being very professional tonight. So I have about 7 questions from the biochem quiz after this. There is about 45 questions in this one. 2 of them are DEA numbers. They're in your notes because I was lazy. But there's actually quite a few trick questions because I, sorry, but they should be quick. But, know your shit. Do you guys want to like start at 7, like on the dot? Because I feel like this is gonna be it because everybody's doing biochem stuff. Oh, you know what? I should have made Oktoberfest cookies this weekend and brought them in for the Kahoots. That's what I used to do. I used to bring in like cookies for these Kahoots and stuff. So it is Oktoberfest, even though it is September. So and you guys aren't German, so nobody knows what Oktoberfest is here. Whereas in Toledo, Ohio, just the whole entire city becomes a debauch. You know, yeah, they have a Halloween thing here, um, but I'm very disappointed because Oktoberfest is like girls in very short skirts and lots of beer and lots of cookies and lots of like just singing until you're 2 in the morning. But yeah, I was afraid nobody would come because nobody like uh, Matt did about 9 or 10 questions, and then I did the rest of them. So Matt did a significant number for like a Kahoot, so I appreciate it. I'm done. I'm done studying after this. Like this is it. I also found old Quizlets and I double checked them. They, I guess, had a lecture on leadership last year that we haven't had. So, like, there's a bunch of stuff in their Quizlet that doesn't translate over. And then, um, really useful, go on the Socrates quiz that he set up with like all the DEA numbers. If you haven't done that, like I missed about 2 or 3 of them, and it was like it really kind of pointed out like I just go through the DEA numbers too quickly. But after a while, because there's like 30 of them, um, you just start to look at the DEA number. You can like add them and multiply them really quickly because you're just tortured and you want to get through it. About after the 5th one, you're like, all right. But there are a few trick questions. There's a couple of very quick answer ones. I think that this one will probably go through in like 15 minutes. This is not super hard. Everett, are you in here or no? I don't see you up. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know, Kaylee, you're not in here. So I'm waiting for you, and I don't see Casey because Casey just got. So there's like about 45 questions, and then I have about 7 questions afterwards with biochem. So if you guys want to do just the quick 7 questions biochem, then stick around. I figured I'd put that in there because you guys are supposed to be studying for that. Oh, nice. Did you see the medication I chose tonight? Very professional. All right. You guys want to call it? Want to start? Yeah? All right. So make sure you read your pharmacy sign. Which part of Medicare covers prescriptions? All right, it is Medicare Part D. So remember, Medicare Part D is for drugs. D for drugs. All right, which is Medicare Part D considered a run by the public or the private? This one's a little interesting. So, Medicare Part D is a bunch of rules, but you actually get your Medicare Part D by a private company. So it is technically run by the private. The rest of Medicare is run publicly. So, because the rest of Medicare is from the government, this is public. Good job, Momo. How often must you renew your intern license? Okay, so in Iowa and Nebraska, it is you have your intern license for 5 years. In West Virginia, it's yearly. So this should have been a little bit more clear that I think Ohio is also after you graduate, you just get a new license. So, how many hours must an intern have working under a pharmacist to become licensed? So 1500 is actually pretty much the standard because me and Joy looked it up. Like almost every state is 1500. So if you want another license, like in Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Nebraska, it's all 1500. Texas, we looked that up. So what is a pharmacy not required to have? So technically, you do not need a DEA license. Though it probably would be, nice. Yeah. So true or false? Is taking off your white coat as an intern to be more approachable allowed? So no, you have to have your white coat pretty much at all times. The only time I think in the pharmacy where I took off my white coat was like if I was doing like compounding. but I was in the back. I was not interacting with patients. I didn't want to get my white coat stained. If a physician walks into a pharmacy and orders a prescription for a patient, is it valid? Yeah. So it's considered an oral prescription. You're just not doing it over the phone. You're just doing it face to face. All right. Which does a pharmacy not need to keep about its patients? So what is not legally required? So this one's all over the place. So you have to have their telephone number because there might be another one. You have to be able to get a hold of the patient. You have to know what medications they are taking because of interactions. And you have to have your pharmacist's drug therapy comments. The problem is not everybody can get a primary care physician. Certain areas of the state, the wait list for a pharmacy care physician or primary care is about like it can be anywhere from like a month or two to a year, depending on what part of the state. So you will encounter that where people don't have that. That happens in Ohio too. So what is not a requirement of immunization training? So is it immunology, physical administration, reporting requirements, biochemistry?
Just wondering, I got it right, but my Mr. Boyer said that like most schools do the immunization training before we even start school. So I guess immunology. No, they got trained before school starts, like during the orientation. He said the entire course and
Yeah, you have to understand basic little bit of basic immunology for allergic reactions. So that's the type of immunology. So, but yeah, you're required to report. And you're required to do the physical administration. So, true or false? A pharmacist in West Virginia needs a prescription to give a 34-year-old male a flu shot, and I misspelled flu because I was in a rush. So yeah, you don't need a prescription to give a flu shot. All right, what are approved courses to be certified immunizer by the West Virginia Board of Pharmacy? Is it the APHA, Ohio Pharmacists Association, University of Kentucky's program, or University of Florida's? Actually, they are all right. If you go on the West Virginia Board of Pharmacy's website and you go to the application, these are all programs in which you can be certified immunizer. If you go to the APHA website, they only offer the course like 3 times a year, and it's annoying. So if you go to any of these, they have their own courses once a year, and so you can go to these instead. Which are approved immunizations for children older than 11 years old? So which are the ones that we can give? There's 2 of them, so you have a 50-50 chance, if I remember correctly. Okay, so you can give the flu, that's for sure, but you can also give HPV. Cannot give meningitis or tetanus. So, good job, JW. Which are approved for adults older than 18 years old? I guess which ones are approved for us to give for adults older than 18 years old? So all of these are ones that we can give without a prescription, and they're all ones that pharmacists are approved of. There is one that we don't give. So how do you maintain your continuing education with immunization? So do you do 4 hours semi-annually, 2 hours biannually, 2 hours annually, or 4 hours annually? This is important because you want to maintain that immunization because otherwise CVS will fire you because you can't give shots, and that's a huge moneymaker. So, or Walmart, or Rite Aid, or Walgreens, or Kroger. So 2 hours annually. Um, that's on the West Virginia Board of Pharmacy website. Just Google like immunization application, and it has it underneath there. So we are allowed to give immunizations according to which guideline? So is it the APHA's guideline? Is it the CDC's guideline? Is it the World Health Organization's guideline? Or is it the National Institute of Health? So alphabet soup.
Not about that.
So it is the CDC. So you get approved usually through APHA, which is the American Pharmaceutical Association, but the American Pharmaceutical Association does not make the guidelines. So you later have to look it up. It'll be through the CDC. All right, so pharmacists must maintain a record of immunizations and report the immunization. We're about a third of the way through. We're on question 16, 45. Not bad. We're going at lightning speed. All right, everybody got that one right. Answer keys catching up. All right, where do you report an immunization on behalf of the patient? So you remember where you guys report? So you report to the West Virginia, I think it's like sterile immunization, something, something investigation board or something like that. And then you can also report to the primary physician. You're supposed to report to the primary physician. If there is no primary physician, you can give a copy to the patient to have on their own record. The electronic health records, they are technically not required by federal law, but um, most pharmacies now have an electronic health record. And I just made up West Virginia Pharmacy State Board in there. Like, I don't think that's even their acronym, unfortunately. How long do pharmacies have to keep these immunization records? So, because this is kind of important, because later on, you're going to have just piles and piles of paperwork, and you're going to want to throw it out. You're going to have patients that just drop by, get a flu shot, and never come back. So then you have their whole entire record of immunizations, and you have to hold on to it. So there is a reasonable amount of time that you hold on to immunization records. It is 5 years. So after 5 years, you can just destroy that. Have a nice bonfire. So, where do you report any adverse events from a vaccine? So, from immunizations, which I didn't quite clarify in there, but not just any adverse events. I'm specifically talking. So, I think it's the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. I think that's what VAERS stands for, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. You do not report to the FDA. FDA can be for any general drugs. CDC is like diseases. DEA is like narcotics, but you wouldn't do that for immunizations. An intern can immunize on their own if certified. If not certified, under the pharmacist instead. I'm doing a ton of immunization ones. There are other ones in here, so don't worry. There is some other stuff in here. There's just a lot of immunization stuff because I think that this is the trickiest part. So I did. This is why I asked for people to submit questions because I will focus on one thing, or I will make questions too tricky, or I will make questions too easy. So if we get like a whole range, we'll get different people and different perspectives. So, yeah, you can immunize if you're certified. If you're not certified, you don't go underneath like the pharmacist license. You can't like immunize on your own. So, all right, which is an immunization that you cannot provide without a prescription. So this is one that is not in the list of ones. So you have these are the abbreviations. So a little bit trickier because there's probably two of them you guys might not know. But there is one that we can't provide that's in the CDC guidelines. So there's one in there. So, what's Tdap? Good. Tetanus. All right. PCV 13. Pneumonia. All right. Zoster. Shingles, chickenpox, MMR. Measles, mumps, and rubella is the only one that we can't do on the CDC guidelines. That is the only one that we have to get a prescription for every single time. So when you see like an MMR one for an adult, do you guys know? Do you guys know when you would see an MMR one? Yeah, when would you see that? Just out of curiosity, do you guys know when would you see somebody come in and request that? What kind of patient population? We'd say the flu shot is everybody. Everybody gets the flu shot. Pneumonia is like old people or people with asthma. Like that's what I'm getting at. MMR is you'll see old people who want to be around their grandkids who have just been born. I think MMR is in there as recommended too. I think so because it's measles, and measles is a childhood disease. There's a lot. Shingles is another one that they will give sometimes to grandparents. It's like a recommend, but it's like a loose recommended. So that's the only time I've seen MMR used in adults. You see it in children, and the only thing is I've only seen it in old people, and that's it. And the only reason is because right now we're having a huge influx of people not vaccinating their kids. Like I think the rate of vaccination in Sudan is the same as Hollywood right now. So like, yeah. Are you liable as a pharmacist if there's a prescription error? Yeah, if you just fill this prescription and it has an error, are you liable? Like, does that make it clearer? I think. Yeah. If you just decide to fill it anyway. All right. Yeah. So if the doctor misfills a prescription and you notice the error, Yeah. So yeah, if the doctor does that. So a pharmacist can evaluate a patient and diagnose. So all right. So we can evaluate, we cannot diagnose unless you're in a collaborative practice agreement. Then you can do strep tests, other stuff, and you can technically diagnose through the doctor. You're technically allowed to under your scope of practice of ordering lab tests. So that's our way around it. Is that we can do lab tests for drugs. Strep happens to be one of those. So where does immunizations fall under that scope of practice? He had us highlight it. So I think the rest of the scope of practice is just, you don't really need to know that. You can figure it out on your own when you get to the exam. But this is one where I don't think would necessarily be intuitive. Might be. You might be smart, but you could be just, memorize and dump. So yeah, it's administration of drugs. So you can do an immunization because you're administering the drug. So that's how we got around that one. What is the most important? So this isn't interesting. This is a little bit subjective. So what is the most important of the rules in regards to freedom of practice? Is it the welfare of public health? Is it the interference in another pharmacist doctor? Is it um, keeping the public confidence? Is it keeping to state regulations? So there are certain times in which some of this is a little bit interesting. So first thing is welfare of the public health. You can administer without a prescription emergency medications, which is technically illegal, but you do it in defiance of the rule in the state of law because you're keeping the public health. So, like an EpiPen, patient falls down, needs an EpiPen, needs nitrostat, has a heart attack. You can administer that because it's your professional judgment. You're saving somebody's life. So, all pharmacies must provide pharmaceutical care. So, there's true, but there's an exception to this. So, which is the one that doesn't have to provide pharmaceutical care? So, nuclear pharmacies. So, all the other ones have to technically have a window by West Virginia state law. Nebraska law, I think in Ohio law, you don't have to. So, you just can, like, have your doors closed and say, don't come in. But nuclear pharmacy, they're special. So, they don't have to do pharmacy care. Should you double check the advertising on your OTC products? Yes, but I won't be liable for it. No, it got approved. It's fine. Yeah, it could be false advertising. No, it's the company's obligation. Does anyone else get kicked out or just me? So, yeah, technically, you can be found as false advertising if you have like a big poster up from the company and it says, miracle weight loss, clinically proven. So, here are some of the fun questions I think coming up. Is this false advertising? So there's a bunch of these. So this is Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment. So would this be considered false advertising? Is there anything on it? So this is these are your trick questions, unfortunately. So it is not false advertising. It doesn't tell you it's going to cure. Doesn't tell you that it's got any clinically significance. It's just telling you it's snake oil. So it's actually perfectly fine under the law. All right, here's another one. Is this also false advertising? Red Bull, it gives you wings. That's why.
They say WII now. Me too, I think that now. Yeah. And it's not real. You didn't hear about them getting sued because someone said that they gave you wings and they're like, that's false.
So so this one is technically the one I pulled up from the article that said that they got sued. So yeah, somebody. So this is interesting. Somebody sued and said that they had been taking Red Bull for 10 years and they did not see any formation of wings.
Yeah, I got a $10 check.
Yeah, and so you yeah, so if you bought any Red Bull between 2002 and now, you can get $10 back because it did not give you wings. No, they don't use it at all. No. So, is this one false advertising? Activity is shown in several clinical studies to help with slow intestinal transit when consumed daily for 2 weeks as part of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle. There's only I think there's one more of these, but that's it. So yes, they got sued for this.
It didn't say it's proved. Proved is something that can never be determined but not sued.
So they got sued for 45 million, I think, of this.
You should read that to me. I can't read.
Yeah, you said that twice already.
Why doesn't it read? From South Park. All right, so one more of these. Cheat death, the antioxidant power of pomegranate juice. So is this false advertising? Is there a problem with this? This is actually even funnier than probably all the other cases, I think, together, is the pomegranate case. So yes, this is false advertising. So Coca-Cola made their own pomegranate juice, however, it was mostly blueberry juice. And they also stated that they had antioxidant power. Now, Palm got mad because pomegranate juice is more expensive, and basically Coca-Cola's company was taking the profits and just taking this huge chunk out, and they were just really selling blueberry juice. Technically, under the law, you can do that. It's not false. So Palm sued them for false advertising because it wasn't really pomegranate juice, and that they were using their advertising campaign to promote their own product. And then Coca-Cola sued them for false advertising. So they both got completely like messed up from this law case. But yeah, they both can't say that there's antioxidant power in either one of them. All right, so can you dispense something that is not deemed to be therapeutically reliable? If I spelled everything correctly. So you can't dispense something that doesn't seem to be therapeutically reliable. Everybody pretty much got that, but it was under like our collusion section. So you can't like give a placebo to a patient. And the problem with this is under the law, can pharmacies sell homeopathy therapies because homeopathy is mostly water? So there are some pharmacies that have gotten pulled up in lawsuits because of it, but there is a doctor of homeopathy. There is a homeopathic book. So technically it is under the FDA, a patent medicine, even though it's all water. What?
I have a question while we're on that.
Yeah.
So like, we can dispense over-the-counter medication as a prescription, but they're not approved by the FDA, therefore they're not. So
So there's therapeutic. So for a long time, Tylenol was considered as therapeutically beneficial, but not FDA approved. So FDA approval does not always mean therapeutically beneficial. And that's where it comes to your professional judgment. And that's what the homeopathy people have said. But I think you should, if you're selling homeopathic stuff, I think that that's kind of shady. But Walmart sells it, so, and it's mostly water, so like there's a huge profit margin on it. So if you leave a job, can you still be held liable as the pharmacist in charge? This one was like a 20-minute story by Dr. Boyer. So if you don't remember this, I'm so sorry.
It's not, okay, everyone knows.
yeah, but they also.
Yeah, but it is, yes, but I thought it didn't matter if there was a replacement, it only mattered if his license was in the.
So the license of the pharmacy is attached to the pharmacist in charge.
Yeah, but he said he took his off so that they just wouldn't have pharmacy cards. It wasn't the fact that.
Yeah.
Make them aware and then.
If there is no pharmacy, it is not, or if there is no pharmacist in charge, it is not a pharmacy.
Yeah, that's.
So
but
that's-
doesn't mean that doesn't need a replacement. He leave and take his thing off and.
Well, but then it's not a pharmacy anymore. So in order for it to stay a pharmacy.
But it just doesn't say, it says after you leave a job.
Oh, well, okay. You guys got it, but I mean,
I understand.
whatever, fine. All right. So why do we have to wear a white coat in the pharmacy? I have no idea which one I put on there, but I don't remember what the right answer is to this one. Yeah, so you're a doctor, wear a white coat, but mostly to make sure that people aren't asking the text drug questions. You're the drug expert. Can a pharmacist fill any prescription? So yeah, sure, the doctor wrote it. Only for a legitimate medical purpose. No, just if you feel like it. No, filling prescriptions are illegal. So yeah, prescriptions are illegal. You can't fill them. Nope. You're not a doctor. You can't fill. Yeah, you can do it for legitimate medical purpose. So if there is no legitimate medical purpose, you don't fill it. All right, so this one will have 120 seconds on it. So, is this a valid DEA number for Ralph Smith, Dr. Ralph Smith?
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Let me double check this. I think I pulled this from the notes.
I don't have a.
All right, so I pulled this straight from the notes,
Just say no.
and I think
No one put yes.
yeah. So I'm like looking at it and I'm going, because the number is what, 51? Yeah. So it's, yeah, so the notes say it's 52, which should have matched up,
I don't know.
which is, but yeah. So Dr. Boyer has this wrong in his notes.
Not surprised by that.
So that was just but yeah, no, this is the wrong number. The identifier, where's the identifier, guys? So you have doctor, so this is your identifier, is this first one right there. And then you have your initial. So for a doctor, you would have or F, but not for the test. So it doesn't matter. So this is another doctor. It's Ralph Macchio.
Oh, this one's good.
Seems like people are doing this much quicker. So
Well, this one altogether.
who has an answer?
I'm done. Go McDonald's.
What'd you get?
I've been trying to
I
get
just got
this.
piercing.
I just got it. On Friday. I had a turkey burger, so you know. I know, but I don't know if I could. Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can, but at a lower incident.
You guys, she just got so gross. And then I had mac and cheese cauliflower, so pretty much it just like that with some cheese. It's awesome. I love cheese.
All right, so coming over the identifiers. So yeah, it's supposed to be A, B, or F, because he's the doctor. So when would you see M? So what are those mid-level practitioners? PA, nurse, practitioner. That's pretty much it as far as I think I've seen. So you cannot dispense any drugs that have been in previous holding by a patient. So a patient comes in, gives you a prescription back. Can you redispense that? Yeah. So let's say it's no, like let's say it's a bottle of pills. Yeah. So like let's say they give back like some expensive cancer drug. Can you give it back? Can you redispense that? So there is an exception to this rule. You can dispense if it's in the original stock bottle and sealed and perfectly fine. So if it's been sealed and non-tampered with, you can redispense it. No, I said like they come in and they drop.
You brought in any drugs that you didn't use that they can't use it.
No, the only time you can do it in our notes it says is when it's in a tamper-proof, sealed bottle in the original bottle. So if it's like in the stock bottle. So on certain cancer drugs, they just have 30 in a bottle, and you'll just dispense it out. Yeah. Yep. So
It's your judgment as a pharmacist whether or not you.
yep. So for like an expensive drug, but some pharmacies will give. I think that they cannot give you a refund for it. I think that that's the so you can hand it back, but you can't give a refund for it. I think is the and it sucks because some of these like Harvoni, like is $1,000 a pill.
Yeah. Aubrey's policy is that once it leaves the pharmacy, unless the patient's in the wrong patient.
Do you have to substitute a generic if the patient requests it? So yes, patient's always right. No, if it is therapeutically inferior. No, if the physician says otherwise. Or no, the patient doesn't matter. So, when a physician says it otherwise, that you have to do the brand name, what do you have to look for? You guys remember? What? Can't be stamped, has to be handwritten. Yep. Yep. So, when is a time in which you as a pharmacist can be called professionally and do not substitute? So like what do you guys how many of you guys have worked in a pharmacy just out of curiosity? Okay. So have you guys ever encountered this? When it's not therapeutically inferior and the physician will or the pharmacist will still dispense the brand name?
Never had
Okay. So there's like two exceptions in which usually you'll see this epilepsy. So all of the epileptic drugs, they're in like such micro quantities. And then there's like not one-to-one therapeutic substitutions. So sometimes the generic that you have on the shelf is not going to be the same for that person. So you have to go with the brand name. So that's considered professional judgment. So you have to go with your brand name. What? There's also levothyroxine. Yeah, is the other one.
Yeah, like Synthroid, Suboxone, levothyroxine.
And then desiccated.
Well, it depends on what your body, how your body responds to it. They have to do blood tests on you every
So do you know why they usually don't go to generic, even though you could on that one? For thyroid meds.
Usually it would default to generic if they don't write anything otherwise, but they'll tell you, the doctor will write on there what kind of medication.
So, how long does it take for thyroid meds to build up in your body?
I feel like I should know this.
It takes about a week. It takes about a week for it to build up in your body. So that's why you have to have blood tests. That's why if you change it even a little bit, you start to have hypo and hyperthyroid, and it causes all sorts of problems. And so those are the two medications that you'll almost always see that it's like drug as written. There's some no statins you can pretty much interchange. So statins are I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head.
I guess
Hmm. There's some like schizophrenia meds where we would call and double check even though those aren't a standard medication that you would call on. And it's just like anything that's like a mood disorder medication, like anything that's like deals with the mind. If you actually look at almost all your anti-psych meds and you go to the mechanism of action, you'll find this out. almost like 90% of them, we have no idea what the mechanism of action is. And so that's one of the problems too, is that going branded generic on those sometimes can be. I think you have patients that are just fussy and they just want brand. So what are your 2 tests for your license, guys? These are, should know these.
Halfway there, guys.
All right. So what does your MPJE stand for? Multi-state produce justice examination, if I remember correctly. And NAPLEX? Ding, ding, ding to the man in the middle. All right. How many questions are on the MPJE? So, what? Total, not the ones that are counted, just total. All right. So, yeah, it's counted out of 100. Yep. So, how many questions are on the NAPLEX? I'm giving you guys pretty freebie. Because you guys seem to be total.
I had no clue.
All right. Can an intern dispense naloxone? Dang you, yes or no? All right. Do you need a prescription? No. I think. All right. What should you make sure to do when you're dispensing naloxone? Make sure that they're using opiates. Counsel them on safe use. Make sure that they have 2 doses, or make sure that they have a prescription. So yeah. So the way that my pharmacy did it was that we made them counseled first before they got it, because then they couldn't walk away.
Yeah.
So
I thought this was in like the in the.
Oh, yeah.
No.
That's what I was thinking.
No, so no, not administration. Sorry, do you know, sir, how to use it?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh God.
Hello, I gotta tell you.
Oh gosh. Oh man. All right, which is the law that established the FDA? The Durham-Dumfries Act, the Harris-Kepler Act, the Controlled Substances Act, or the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938?
Oh, no, there's my mom.
So, what does the Controlled Substances Act, since you guys know that that starts the FDA? DEA is Controlled Substances Act. So, what is the Durham-Dumfries Act and the Harris-Kepler Act? You mentioned it in class. It's not written in your notes, so you had to pay attention. So these were the big amendments to the controlled substances. So the Dumfries Act shows you the efficacy. So this is the one where they have to test for efficacy of their drug. And I believe the Kepler Act, the Harris-Kepler Act, is the one on controlled substances tracking and taxation. It was mostly just a tax because cocaine made a lot of money. So, well, this is the end of this one. We're going to do the biochem in a second. So, take a second. Do people need a break? So, Dumfries and the Kepler Act are amendments to, I believe, the controlled substances. I believe the Kefir is the one on taxation and selling of opiates and narcotics and such. It's one or the other, but you don't need to know it now necessarily, but you do need to be able to recognize what these are. That's all. So you guys aren't going to be tested on those 2. He just mentioned it in class that you're going to have to know this eventually. So. Oh, did I switch it? Yeah. Yeah, the one has to deal with research and the other one has to deal with. All right. All right, we have no. Don't listen. Don't look at that. All right. All right, so this is the biochem one in a second. Good job, guys. All right, here's the other one. So I think there's 7 questions. There's not a lot of questions, but I thought since I'm taking your time, I'd help you guys study for that tomorrow. Casey, are you
No.
Yeah, boy. All right, is everybody in? Are we good? All right. So, why is there a difference in sizes between the eukaryotes and the prokaryote ribosomes? Why is this significant? Why is this something that you need to know? So, is it that it makes it a good drug target? Is it the different sedimentation rates somehow is significant? Is only specific RNA can fit into them, or can only specific enzymes act on them? So, because the 2 different sizes, it will bind to different stuff when it comes to drug targets. So it makes it much easier for us to fight bacterial infections because of that. So that is something she had, I think, in her notes somewhere. All right, in rRNA, what is modified after synthesis? So the first thing is uh, it is only modified after synthesis. It will not be modified before synthesis. So she had that highlighted, and on the same slide, she had that there's only one thing that gets modified in the rRNA. It's the bases. The bases get modified. So where is the methyl cap on the mRNA? Is it at the 5' end or the 3' end? Okay, so what's on the 3' end? What? Yep, I just have like all the A's on the end. But yeah. So why is this important? So why do you want a methyl cap on the one side? I thought it was for degradation too. So you don't want your RNA constantly degrading. All right, what is the type of bond between the histone and the DNA? I may or may not have heard this correctly, so this one may, if somebody else has something different in their notes. So I believe she said ionic, but she was going really quickly, so I need to double check that. Okay, so which form of the DNA is the transient form? So which ones? So your transient form is the Z form. So it's the one that doesn't stay in that form. So A and B are the main stable forms. Transient form is the one that is what? No. So what happens in your body is that when you die, your DNA will like coil in different ways, and so your DNA will normally coil one way, but as you start to like degrade, it just starts to go the other way. And so sometimes if you do blood samples at like a crime scene or you do autopsies, you'll see Z form. But most of the time, your body, as soon as it realizes that that's happening, it'll correct it. So, so it's considered the transient form because you almost never see it, but it happens. Which form of DNA is the most common? A, B, or Z? So yeah. So why is your B form most common? You guys know why? So it has a water backbone, and so there's water in your body. So those water interactions will just always be there. And it also allows it to be open and allows it to be copied. So in the A form, it's so tightly packed, it won't be able to be copied. So you need to copy stuff. You need the B form. Thymine binds to. Super simple. Or at least it should be. Who hasn't answered? Ah. Okay. So what? All right. So we have AT. Where's the other one? CG. So that's the other ones. I don't know why. All right. What is this? So can you recognize which one this is? So is it a purine or a pyrimidine? That's your first thing. Okay. Maybe it is. I don't. But that'll narrow it down usually. So if you know which one that is. So this is uracil. So, all right, and I think that's it for this. Woo. All right, bye. GTFO.